That's right. Average Joe's bringing your fantasy thunder. This is your host, Ollie, and Dave, no Tonio Brown Allen. How you doing this evening, Dave?
Man, doing good, ready for some Monday night football.
Oh, man, so excited this week, and I know you can hear it in my voice. My week 2 is shaping up a whole lot better than my week 1. The 49ers won this weekend. Alabama Crimson Tide won this weekend. And in the leagues that I really care about, looks like I'm getting ready to go 4-0. So I'm really, really excited, man. I do have a couple people going tonight, but I'm only down by 6 points, so I should be able to wrap that up pretty easily. How's your week 1 going?
It's all right for those who listened last week and got to hear that, out of my 20 teams, I was only losing like 6 or so. It's not the same this week. So, yes, I do lose. I'm about halfway, but one of my leagues, I'm down by .3, and I got the Bears defense tonight, so I'm thinking they'll pull it out, but if they somehow just get 0, I'm going to be very upset.
yeah, that could really put you over the edge and make you pull your hair out, but the Bears are pretty solid this year. Russell Wilson is a great quarterback, but I'm not sure if he's with the offense and players he has around him, if he can give you negative points this evening. So I think you're pretty safe. Go ahead and enjoy your win on that one. I'll rest easy on that one. But yeah, once again, want to thank everybody for coming back and listening. Want to thank you for everyone who listened last week and some of the new listeners. Once again, we're a new show. Trying to bring you guys a different spin, some different kinds of segments that can help your fantasy lineups and your fantasy year. Help you guys dominate your league. So thank you once again for listening. Please, it'll mean everything in the world to us. Just click that like button. Click the subscribe button. We would certainly appreciate it. And once again, thank you. So we have a jam-packed show. Football is on in an hour, so we're going to try to get this done in less than an hour. We're going to start doing these on Mondays for you guys. So check back in on Mondays for the videos, for the video podcast. We want to give you guys relevant information at the beginning of the week. That way, it can carry you into your next fantasy week and not so much doing it. We were doing it on Thursdays, but that was kind of late. So we're going to try to start doing it a little bit earlier. So we got a few things we want to run through tonight. We're going to run through some of the week 2 top performers, some of the games in week 2, some people you should continue to look out for. Of course, we're going to talk about the upcoming games for week 3, some of the top performers we expect to go there. We're going to do a quick waiver wire recap again. Everybody's doing waiver wire, so we're not going to spend a whole lot of time on waiver wire, but definitely want to make that a point. But we are going to do a new segment tonight called the Blame Game. Blame Game is basically some of the underperforming players through the first couple of weeks and who's to blame. Why are they underperforming, whether it's the player or the coach or whatever's happening there. What's happening with that particular player and possibly if it's going to turn around for them or not. So we'll do that segment for you guys. So we'll jump right in. Let's go ahead and do a quick week 2 recap, some of the top performers. The first game I want to talk about here, Dave, is the Minnesota-Green Bay game. Ended in a tie, but there was a lot of fantasy points to go around. Did you get a chance to check that one out?
Yeah, I definitely enjoyed that. It's our second tie in 2 weeks, and Kirk Cousins throwing for 400 yards or 4 touchdowns. I'm sorry, and 400 yards. So yeah, it's just a lot going on in that game.
I honestly did not expect Kirk Cousins to be so good in this offense. I think it goes to show when you have a really good quarterback, once he gets some solid weapons around him, what he can do. And thank goodness that game finally ended because Adam Thielen and Stephon Diggs were not going to stop scoring fantasy points.
No. It seemed like they were getting stronger as the game was going on.
Oh, my God. Did you see that touchdown to Thielen in the corner? How did it make it through those 2 defenders for the touchdown? It was ridiculous.
Absolutely. I don't know if I was more excited that Thielen stayed in bounds or that Kirk was able to fit that ball in there. That was ridiculous.
Well, Thielen absolutely helped me win my week in one of my leagues here, so I was kind of happy. Now, I was playing against him in a different league, but I was winning by so much it didn't matter. It was a great feeling. But, yeah, that Minnesota offense is one to keep an eye on with Thielen and Diggs. Looks like there's going to be enough targets and enough fantasy points to go around. Diggs kind of being their big play guy. He's taking a lot of long balls to their house. Thielen looks like he's going to be the underneath guy, getting 8-9 receptions a game, and which is good because from the off season, from the preseason, it didn't appear that way. It appeared that Cousins had a lot better chemistry with Stephon Diggs, and no one quite knew where Thielen was going to fit in. But Thielen's doing pretty good through the first 2 weeks.
Right. No, definitely. He's continuing to show that he's going to get it done no matter what. I think, like you were talking about the offseason, I think especially when the Vikings came out and gave Stephon Diggs this big contract, that was another reason for fantasy owners to be like, okay, they're going to go. They're obviously going in the direction of Diggs, but Thielen showing that I'm here. I'm here to stay. Like I'm going to keep getting mine.
Yeah, I'm a part of the offense as well. And I mean, even this week, Kyle Rudolph had a bit of a rebound game as well. I think he had 7 receptions, caught 7 out of 8 passes. So he really bounced back for fantasy owners everywhere. And I think there's going to be enough to go around. And especially when you have some of these big scores and they go up against Green Bay, looks like there's going to be a lot of fun there. So keep your eye on that Minnesota offense there. And Green Bay, man, A-Rod, what can you say about this guy? Just courage through, just rock solid. Came out there basically on one leg. I was afraid for him. With that Minnesota defense bearing down on him, I thought he would not make it through the game with one leg, and he just went out there and showed a lot of heart, man, and put up a great game.
I mean, Aaron Rodgers continues to prove me wrong. I know we talked last week, and I was saying, as long as Aaron Rodgers is playing, I'm going to play him.
Right.
But like you said, him going out there against the Vikings defense on basically one leg, I just didn't know how much relevance he was going to give. But, I mean, this guy, Aaron Rodgers gets it done.
Right. Now, he didn't have the best fantasy week. I think he ended up with about 16, which is quite a bit lower, 4 or 5 points lower than probably his average. But, I mean, what else can you possibly ask for? Adams had a pretty decent game, put up about 19 to 20 fantasy points. Allison came down to earth just a little bit, but still had a pretty decent game for somebody you probably picked up off of waivers. And very, very quietly, Jimmy Graham, 6 receptions, 95 yards.
Yeah. But I think that's what everybody or a lot of people were expecting with Jimmy Graham going to Green Bay, being with Aaron Rodgers was, he might not have these crazy games, but exactly like you said, quietly, he's going to give you great fantasy relevance. I mean, he was a touchdown away from a huge fantasy week.
Right. And do you think, and as a matter of fact, I think he actually scored a touchdown, was called back on a holding penalty, so that week could have been a lot bigger for him. Do you think Jimmy Graham's going to be able to sustain this kind of production week in and week out?
I personally think he can. I mean, it's like I said, it's hard for me to go against somebody in the Aaron Rodgers system. I think if he had 6 for 95, 8 targets, I mean, as long as Jimmy Graham's getting 5 to 7 targets a game, I think he can give you around 60 yards, and he'll sneak in a couple of touchdowns here and there. So, yeah, Jimmy Graham's going to be able to keep up a consistent level for fantasy owners.
Yeah, A-Rod is definitely looking for him around the goal line here. So I actually may have been a little bit low on Jimmy Graham coming into this year. I know he was a touchdown machine in Seattle, but it looks like he's going to maintain that same kind of a role, or maybe even a bigger role here as A-Rod becomes more comfortable with him. So I really like that. Now, one thing to note here for Green Bay is that Aaron Jones is coming off suspension this week, and honestly, it may be kind of unfair to judge Jamal Williams off these first 2 games with Aaron Rodgers kind of being limited and also playing against a couple of pretty decent defenses, but it hasn't been any flash from Jamal Williams. Do you think Aaron Jones comes into a big role here, or?
I think Aaron Jones comes back and maybe not this next week. I think this next week it's not like he's coming off of a crazy injury or anything, so it's not like they're going to have to work him in. It's just a suspension. But I do think that they will still kind of split it a little bit. But we will see them gravitating and, basically saying, this is Aaron Jones' backfield, especially against a Redskins defense that, once Aaron Rodgers gets going
Right.
against that defense, Aaron Jones is going to open it up for him. So, yeah, I think Aaron Jones can come back and solidify his role.
Right. There was no doubt last year watching the two that Aaron Jones was the big play guy. He was the best pure running back they had. Now, the knock against him, obviously, is the pass protection. And from playing football myself, I hate to, talk about the old glory days like Al Bundy here, but playing football myself, pass protection to me just seems like effort. Do I want to put the effort in to making sure I'm on top of my pass protection? I believe he wants to take over the backfield. That's something that we'll see improvement in. And with his big playability, it may be his backfield if, Jamal Williams continues to average 3.5 yards per carry. So that's something to look out for. You may want to be, leery of putting in Jamal Williams into your starting lineup this week. I may actually I do have him on a couple of squads, a couple of shares of him. I may actually sit him this week just to see what Green Bay is going to do with the two. And if Aaron Jones, they start splitting carries and Aaron Jones shows what he showed last year, I'm really going to take a look at maybe trading Jamal Williams for all possible or sitting him until this fall clears up. So definitely something to look out for all you guys out there in fantasy land. So good deal. Green Bay, Minnesota. We'll go on to the next game here that really showed something that I want to talk about. The Saints and the Browns. Now, this wasn't as high-powered of a game, obviously, but coming into the year, Saints were one of those dark horse teams to possibly contend for the Super Bowl, and they should be 0-2. They should have lost their first two games.
Yes, they very well could be 0-2. Absolutely.
Yeah. What do you think about what's going on with the Saints here? What's on your mind? What's happening with them?
To be honest, the defense is not the defense that we saw the second half of last year.
Right. Okay.
I think that's one of the biggest factors that I'm noticing with the Saints. I mean, the offense is fine. Drew Brees didn't play excellent last week, but Drew Brees, he did his thing. But the defense is I think we were all expecting the carryover from the second half of last year, and that's why everybody was like, okay, the Saints. But they're just not really – and the Browns, to talk about them, they're not the same Browns. I mean, this defense is pretty good on the Browns side.
Yeah, better defense, absolutely, and a better offense.
Yeah, definitely. So, the Saints offense is there. The Drew Brees is still playing. Kamara's still getting his. Michael Thomas is playing crazy these first two games. I think it's just the defense right now for the Saints.
Yeah, that could be it. And the Browns missed a couple of field goals that probably should have helped them win the game, but it just doesn't seem that there's this, I don't know, the flash and dash, so to speak, with the Saints this year. I'm not quite sure if they're ready to take that step to go into the Super Bowl. Kamara came down to earth a little bit. I don't know. Do you think this lull they're in has anything to do with Ingram being out? Because obviously Gillislee has not been the same kind of a player or had the same kind of impact as an Ingram. Do you think he's having that big of an effect on the team?
For the Saints, I sure hope not.
Right.
I hope it's not, because I know they were talking about, this might be his last year here. We're going to give it to Kamara, all this stuff. But, we saw Gillislee not really doing anything. We actually got to see a little bit of Jonathan Williams play, so they're obviously not too high on Gillislee anymore. It might be. They might need Mark Ingram to come back in and kind of give the defense that powerhouse feeling that, okay, I'm going to think twice when I'm coming up to tackle this guy. And then they're going to throw Kamara in there, and they're going to throw Michael Tuck, so that could very well be it. I think Mark Ingram is not necessarily holding them back, but he is, kind of him being out is kind of hurting the thing.
Right. Yeah, I think so. Having a guy that can run, between the tackles is certainly something they need for that offense, because as great as Kamara has been through the first 2 weeks, especially week number 1, he's obviously not the between the tackles runner. I don't think he's averaging anything but maybe 3 yards a carry, getting the ball handed off to him. He's more of that receiver out of the backfield kind of a guy. To me, he's a supercharged James White. He's not going to run, he's not, going to get the ball handed off to him and do a whole lot. But coming out of the backfield, catching the ball is where he gets his bread and butter. And and as you mentioned, Michael Thomas has been absolutely insane through the first couple of weeks. Off the top of your head, can you give me the top 3 PPR receivers? Who's number 1?
Top of my head. Number 1, got to be Tyreek Hill.
No, actually, it's Mike Thomas. I did the numbers.
Really?
Yeah, PPR. Tyreek Hill, which we're going to talk about here more in a little bit, 12 receptions, 259 yards, 3 touchdowns. Mike Thomas, 28 receptions, 269, 3 touchdowns. Excuse me. So he's having a phenomenal year. I mean, 14 receptions average per game. So, Drew Brees is looking his way a lot. And I actually have Mike Thomas on one of my squads, and I didn't feel great about drafting him. I did not. When I drafted him above Keenan Allen. I drafted him over Devontae Adams, who both of those guys I really, really like. But something just said draft Michael Thomas. I drafted him, didn't feel great about it, but he's far exceeded my expectations so far into the year. So if you have him, you're likely 2-0 right now because he's gone completely off this year. Now, the thing is, though, all the balls are going to Mike Thomas. What's going on with the rest of the Saints, man?
He's the one that's just that Drew Brees is settling in on. I mean, I think they expected Cameron Meredith to come in and kind of help with that, but Cameron Meredith isn't playing. Ted Ginn is your long ball guy, and you've got a couple of other players that are just like, okay, if they get open, I can hit them. But Drew Brees it's Kamara and Michael Thomas.
That he's spreading the ball around, and Traquan Smith hasn't quite. I'm not sure if he's not up on the offense or whatnot, but there's a lot of hype coming around him this off season, and it doesn't look like that's shaping up for him. So I don't know if you have him, that may be somebody you want to hold on to and stash in dynasty leagues. But right now, it looks like the only 2 fantasy viable receivers are Mike Thomas and possibly Ted Ginn if you want to throw him into your flex. And even Ted Ginn in your flex is probably a long play.
Absolutely, there's some more people that I mean, Ted Ginn's not terrible, but if you're looking at Ted Ginn, you might want to look in the waivers.
Right. Yeah, we'll get in the waivers later on, but there's definitely a couple of people out there who seem to be a little bit more flex worthy, so we'll talk about that. All right, good deal. Let's go ahead and move to the next game here, and we can't move past this segment without talking about the Chiefs and the Steelers. Fantasy points up and down, left and right. And before we jump into that, I'm going to give you the stage and give you a moment to go ahead and apologize to your boy Patty Mahomes. Because, you totally discounted that guy. You talked junk about him. Now it's time to go ahead and, if I had some slow music, I'll play it for you.
Yeah, I was about to say, cue the slow music. I need the violins and everybody. Listen, this. I will go ahead right now. I'm going to hop in my box. To Patrick, if I could write him a letter, to Patrick Mahomes, I sincerely apologize for everything that I said. I also want to give an apology to the Steelers. Had I known that what I said to Mahomes, I don't know if somebody told
it's his
him
fault.
what
it's
I
Dave's
said.
fault, Steelers.
I didn't know he was going to turn it around and throw 6 touchdowns on you guys. I had no idea he was only going to miss 5 passes. That's my bad, Pittsburgh. That's my fault.
Just like Kamara showed me this week, Pat Mahomes gave you 2 weeks back-to-back. Man, I cannot believe what I seen there, and I'll be honest, you probably aren't the only one that has to give him an apology. I 100% did not think he was going to be that good. When I seen people draft him, I was like, yeah. When people kept saying he could be a top 10 quarterback this year, I said, nah, I got to see it. And I am one of those kinds of guys that said that, I need to see it first. But he's far exceeded everyone's expectations. Even if he's just mediocre through the rest of the year, you got to believe he's ending up with at least 25 passing touchdowns, and he has some.
And you know what's even worse about this situation? I have him on one of my fantasy teams.
Oh, yeah, I've seen that.
I sat him both weeks.
No!
Both of these weeks, I've sat him
Oh,
That's how strong. So for the people listening, I don't just tell you guys one thing and then go do another thing on my team. No,
I screw myself up too.
Yeah. I believe it or not, I listen to myself. So I said them, man, and I'm shouldn't have.
Yeah, I was
because of it.
on a fantasy chat room just the other day, and there was a guy. His name was D Jork, DJORK, and he said, "Man, I played Drew Brees and sat Pat Mahomes. I feel like crap right now." And I responded back to him, "Take the G out of your name. Just leave Dork." You gotta play this guy at this point. I mean, now what's going to happen the way fantasy works? He's going to come back and have a terrible game week 3, but you have to roll him out there just to see. You cannot leave him. You're not leaving him on the bench this week, are you?
No, I can't. He's reached that point for me. He's one of those people, which, I mean, during the blend game, I'm sure we'll talk about some of these people, but he's reached that level of top so far this year that I would rather lose with him in than lose knowing that he should have been in the game. So,
right.
Yeah, he's a must play now.
Yeah, and he has a pretty good matchup. I believe, if I'm not mistaken, the 49ers, my team this week. I'm actually scared to see this guy, this offense, which we'll talk about here a little bit more later on, possibly in some of the week 3 games, is just insane. Watkins had a pretty decent game this week. He's someone at this point I still don't trust, but I believe he went 6 for 113. I mean, what can you say about Tyreek Hill? And Kelsey showed up this week as well. So Mahomes is getting it out to everybody, and man, they're just having a great game.
The Chiefs are showing me up. I talk bad about Patrick Mahomes, he goes off. I drop Sammy Watkins, he has a good game. I talk bad about Kareem Hunt, he gets a touchdown and does his thing as well. I mean, you know what? Maybe you guys the listeners should learn this. If me or Oliver have a strong opinion about a player and it's negative, maybe you start him.
Do the opposite.
maybe you go ahead and start him, because me and Ollie have just certain players we've been real key on, and they're showing us up on purpose.
Now, I will say this, though, and I'm not sure if either one of us has talked much about Kareem Hunt, but I'm going to get into him in a little bit, but I don't think Kareem Hunt has a touchdown this year. So he
had a receiving touchdown this
okay, receiving touchdown. Okay, well, which all counts. It's all fantasy points. So, excellent. Yeah, that was a good game. And on the other side of the ball, we definitely have to talk about Big Ben showing out. Had a great fantasy day.
Absolutely.
And just an insane game from Jesse James. 5 receptions for 138 yards. I mean, did they just not know he was on the field? How did that happen?
This man, he kind of became Big Ben's safety blanket. If you go back and watch it, when Big Ben was kind of scrambling out, and he would just kind of throw it up to Jesse. And first of all, Jesse's got some strong hands. He was snagging a couple of these balls down. So, he just kind of showed out.
So what does that do for Vance McDonald's fantasy outlook? Because a lot of people were excited about him. He was actually one of the late round tight ends a lot of the experts liked. Do you think now Jesse James is the guy, or what are you thinking?
That tight end situation, I would say hold your horses on trying to decide who's going to be the most relevant tight end in that offense, because we saw that last year where Jesse James had a great stand, and then the end of the season it was like Vance McDonald, who is this? He's crazy.
Right.
And so now we're kind of seeing it again this year. I don't even think the Steelers know. I think it's going to be a per-game basis of who's open and who's feeling it that week.
Yeah. That's another one of those wait-and-see kind of things like the Green Bay backfield. You never know who's going to go off, but it doesn't help that Vance McDonald's been kind of injured in and out here through a few games, and Jesse James certainly took advantage of it this last game. So someone to keep on your radar. I wouldn't say someone I want to go spend a bunch of fab on or my waiver wire pick on just yet, but another game, maybe somebody you want to take a look at picking up and stashing on your bench to see how things go. But the big question – I'm sorry, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, real quick, for the listeners who may not have heard this, they had Antonio Brown kind of complain in this last game about, he didn't like his targets. So he had 17 targets first of all.
Well, hold on one second, because I was actually getting ready to get to that. I wasn't going to skip over that. Is there a new number one in Steeltown? Because Juju is playing the part. That was my next question, so I'm glad you got into it. Is there a new number one for the Steelers?
This is what I'm going to say. I've got 2 words. Madden curse. Maybe he's not getting injured. Listen to me. Let me try to explain myself. So maybe Antonio Brown's not getting injured, right? But maybe his production won't even go crazy that far off. But the fact that we're asking the question, granted, Juju only had 2 more targets than Antonio Brown, but Juju kind of made more of his targets and caught more balls. But what I'm gonna say is, Antonio Brown's upset. He's been talking about, I'm upset that I'm not being used in the red zone, this, that, and the third. And today, make of this what you want, but there's been speculation around a tweet going around today that an ex-Steelers employee was saying, basically Antonio Brown's not that good. I'm paraphrasing, but Antonio Brown's not that good, and he's nothing without Big Ben. And Antonio Brown responded and said, trade me and let's see what I do on another team.
Oh, wow.
There's been speculation about Antonio Brown saying that in his tweet. You can take it how you want, but, I don't know what's going on in Pittsburgh. These players.
Wow.
But to answer your question specifically about Juju looks really good. AB's not happy. I don't know what you do.
Well, I first off, who is this ex-employee that the Steelers have to put a hit out on right now? Because don't be talking, don't be getting Antonio Brown wanting to get traded. Because I don't care what anybody says, the man is a beast. And even with Juju going off and Jesse James going off and everything else, the man still has 18 receptions through the first 2 games and 160 yards. So if you extrapolate that out, it may not be a 1,700-yard season, but he's well over 1,000. I believe probably somewhere around 1,300 yards. I got my calculator here. Let's do that. So 80 yards a game times 16. Yeah, still puts him 20 yards less than 1,300, which most receivers would take in a heartbeat. Right. So still a great year for him if he continues to do that. I would say that's far beyond the Madden curse. But maybe it's a pride thing. Maybe he's used to being, hey, I'm the number one guy. I don't like Juju getting all the touchdowns here and all the extra yards here. What's going on? That is certainly a situation to monitor. But right now, it looks like Juju is an insane value because you probably got him in round 4.
Absolutely, yeah. And Juju's looking real good. And it's not even, of course he's got some big plays here and there, but I mean, Juju's catching underneath balls and just taking them. So
right.
Juju looks good. Quick side note, my guy James Washington got in and had one catch, but it was a touchdown.
One touchdown.
So, hey.
Yeah, not quite coming through on the Madden curse just yet, but if it comes to fruition, he's going to be a big part of the offense. But definitely keep an eye out on those guys, and I would go ahead and play Juju. Of course, if you pick him up in round 4, but with no discretion right now. He's looking like a number 1 receiver. I really like what I'm seeing out of him. So if you got him in the 4th round, kudos to you. So we're going to go ahead and end the week 2 recap. Of course, there are a lot more games and good performances there, but for the sake of time, we'll move on to our next segment. And this is the one I want to go ahead and get into the blame game. And again, folks, this is a new segment for us. We're going to talk about some underperforming players through the first couple of weeks and who or what is to blame. I got a few guys, and Dave has a few guys, so I'll let you go ahead and give your first player. Who do you have?
First for me is Jamison Crowder.
I mean, you took one of my guys, man.
Sorry, I think a lot of people are going to be upset or are upset with that drafted Jamison. 8 targets, 5 catches for 40 yards in the past 2 games. For me, who I'm gonna blame personally, I've heard I was listening to some other people and they were saying, Jamison Crowder he's just looking kind of lost out there, so maybe it's on him. I blame the running backs in Washington. I mean, Adrian Peterson, first game, 26 carries for 96 yards, so they were feeding APs running all over everyone. And in the second game, Chris Thompson was the lead. He had the most targets in the game. He had 13 receptions.
Right.
So they're really incorporating their running backs, and I think that's taken a lot away from the not necessarily the passing game, but the actual receivers. Jamison Crowder so far through 2 weeks has been very underwhelming.
Yeah, he was on my list as well. 5 receptions, 40 yards. You probably got him in the mid-round, somewhere around 7 to 9. Likely you were drafting Jamison Crowder, and the running backs. The first game, Adrian Peterson had a pretty decent game, and obviously Chris Thompson had a pretty good game. But I think that comes down to I'm blaming Smith. I'm blaming Alex Smith here. You got to work the ball to your playmakers a little more. You got to get the ball around to everybody. You have to know that as a quarterback. That your playmakers have to touch the ball. And I do understand that possibly was the defense, what they're going to give you or whatnot, but there's no reason for your top wide receiver to have 5 receptions for the first 2 games and your running back to triple that almost in 1 game. You got to be able to get the ball out to some of these guys here, even if you have to, fit into a tight window. I mean, as a general of the team, you have to, at the same time, read morale. I'm not saying make stupid plays and stupid passes, but you have to keep your playmakers happy. And even if you're just giving him some targets that are not, you got to get him the ball to get the ball his way. And it's absolutely insane that he only has 5 receptions through the first couple of games. So Alex Smith is going to have to do a better job of getting this ball around to his playmakers. So that was who I was blaming. But good call. Yeah, he was definitely on my list. And one of the guys that I wanted to talk about here, and perhaps my idea is changing this a little bit because I missed the fact that he had one of the receiving touchdowns. But even still, it's one of the receiving touchdowns. Kareem Hunt has been a little underwhelming this year. 124 yards on the ground through the first 2 games and 1 touchdown. Not abysmal, but certainly at his draft price, a lot of he was going round 1 for a lot of drafts. Likely not what you were hoping for. However, you have to blame the wide receivers. They're taking everything to the house. So, and I did the math on it here. Mahomes through the first 2 games has 38 completions, 10 touchdowns. So if you're getting a touchdown every 4 completions, why run the ball?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
It's his wide receivers. He has to sit these wide receivers down and say, hey, stop taking everything to the house so I can get some touches.
I drafted myself on my own fantasy team. I need to score some points as well.
But what do you do, man? I mean, right now, 1 touchdown every four completions. You can't stop that. You got to keep on rolling with the hot hand there, and he may just be. He had a pretty good game this last game, but that was such a high-scoring game. You can't expect that every game. However, if he keeps, they keep this efficiency up in the passing game, this could be a really down year for Kareem Hunt.
Absolutely, and that's what I was going to get to. For Kareem Hunt to stay, and like you said, the numbers aren't terrible, so excuse me if the word irrelevant is too strong here, but for Kareem Hunt to stay fantasy irrelevant, that passing game is going to have to stay out of the roof. And I don't think anybody's expecting that to continue throughout the whole year. So it is kind of, it's kind of unfortunate that Kareem Hunt's not being used as much in the pass game. I think he had one catch, and it was the touchdown last game.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. I mean, he is one of those bell cow kind of guys where he catches the ball a lot out of the backfield, but one reception. It looks like Mahomes is just not targeting him through the first couple of weeks.
Right, yeah. And another unfortunate thing to think about is that the Chiefs' defense is not very good.
Right.
And so we're not going to really have many games where Mahomes is throwing 4 or 5 touchdowns and the Chiefs are killing the other team, so now they, just feed Kareem Hunt. They're going to be playing in shootouts. So, of course, nobody's saying drop Kareem Hunt yet.
No.
But, yeah, he's definitely – I agree with you on that. He's definitely a part of it was great to use in this segment because he has been underwhelming, and hopefully he can flip around and pick it up.
Yeah. And, I mean, again, like you said, no one's saying drop him or not to play him. He should definitely be in your starting lineups. I mean, you have to with his draft price. Like you don't have anyone that could take his place, and especially with all these running backs going down with injuries. We got another, McCoy. Looks like he may be a little bit hurt here. So just injury after injury in the backfield. So you probably don't have any choice. Hopefully things will turn around for him here these upcoming games, and we'll kind of see what happens. But if you spent a high first round pick on him, likely he's been a little underwhelming for you thus far. So yeah, who's your number 2 guy, man?
Yeah, I'm actually going to talk about another guy that was most likely drafted or was definitely drafted round 1, most likely top 4.
Okay.
And that's David Johnson.
Gosh, you are sniping all of my guys. Man, I'm going first next time.
Well, if you want, I can talk about my other guy, and then we can both talk about David Johnson.
No, go ahead. Jump right in, man. We'll go ahead and bounce off of him.
Okay. Yeah. First game, he had 9 attempts for 37 yards. Which is under, it's not very good. To be honest, he had a touchdown. That's the only thing that kept him fantasy relevant in week 1. And then this past week, granted they played the Rams, but 13 attempts, 48 yards. He only had six fantasy points. And I'm blaming the Cardinals offense, the entire offense. Not just Sam Bradford, not just the O-line, not just David Johnson, but the offense just doesn't look good.
No.
It's not looking good. I can kind of put the blame on the defense, too, a little bit. They're switching over to this zone style, which doesn't really seem like it's working. So the Cardinals are getting forced to throw the ball quicker because their offense isn't very good. And no matter how much talent David Johnson has, you can't expect him to, put up these great numbers when the offense in its whole is just not there.
Yeah. I mean, look, once he came back and everyone said he's going to be full health and during this draft season, there were people advocating for him to be possibly the number 1 pick off the board. The idea behind Gurley, which looks 100% inaccurate at this point, is it's so hard to repeat as rushing champion that it's very, very unlikely that he's going to repeat. So there's going to be a new number 1. David Johnson has the dual threat capability. He was close to 1,000 receiving and rushing one year. So they people really liked him, was high on him on that. Looks like Elliott was going to be in a bad offensive line going down. He's not really a receiving threat. And then Bell has his contract situation. So a lot of people were kind of advocating for David Johnson to be number 1 pick. And if you picked him number 1 overall, right now you have to be sobbing. I mean, and I'm blaming the coaching staff, okay, between the defensive changes, and I know the offensive line wasn't going to be that very, very good, but there's no reason for this guy not to have the ball in his hands, even if you have to force feed it to him. And when you're down like this, knowing that he has those capabilities out of the backfield, why is he not getting more targets? What does he have through the first couple of games? 6 receptions? He should do that in 1 game.
Yeah, he should. He should. That's your offense, especially when, like you just said, the offensive line isn't the best. So they should be trying to find a way to get the ball out of his hands quickly, and just a swing pass to David Johnson. And like going back to what you just said about Jamison Crowder, you got to get the ball to your skilled players. You have to.
You got to get them to your guys. Yeah. So I'm blaming the Cardinals coaching staff there. Hopefully things are turning around, especially for you guys who drafted him top 4, maybe even number 1 overall. Right now, that is abysmal. I don't care if he had a touchdown or not. You expect David Johnson to have 85 yards a game, not 85 yards for the first 2 games. Not going to get it done for you. So, good. My turn. Hopefully this guy is on your list and I can snipe you. I'm going with Derrick Henry. Derrick Henry, he was likely drafted him in the top 4 rounds, and he's getting outscored by Dion Lewis thus far through the first 2 weeks, and I think Dion Lewis was a round or 2 cheaper than him. Now, if you drafted Derrick Henry, one positive sign is this last week he did out-touch Lewis. But I believe he had something like 16, 17 carries for 50 yards. And eventually, I think the coaching staff is just going to have to go away from him if this continues to happen. If he doesn't get those big plays where he's, churning out big chunks of yardage, he just may, I don't know, I like him. He's from Alabama. He may just not be that awesome of a running back. What do you think?
I mean, when Dion Lewis got signed there, automatically for me, I've been saying since fantasy started that I thought Dion Lewis was gonna prove to be the best running back there. Maybe not off of pure talent, but off of usage, how I felt like the Titans would use him, how he showed in New England.
Right.
They will keep trying to give Derrick Henry the ball. I think the Titans, I feel like really want Derrick Henry to take this. Like they want it so badly, but he's just not. For whatever reason, he can't put 2 and 2 together, and their offense isn't tremendous.
Right.
Especially this game not having Marcus Mariota. And Dion Lewis gives that safety blanket rolling out. Granted, he only had 1 target this game, but, not to skip too far, but looking ahead to next week, I think the Titans are taking on the Jaguars, I'm pretty sure.
I was getting ready to mention that. It doesn't get Jaguars, then the Eagles, then the Ravens. That's 3 out of the next 4 games.
Oh, yeah. So that's going to be that's going to be passing. That's where Dion Lewis thrives against these defenses with strong fronts that are coming after the quarterback, good secondaries that are playing back. I mean, we're going to see a lot of Dion Lewis.
Okay. So are you thinking Dion Lewis is a good buy low candidate right now? Someone who he didn't have the greatest game last game. Possibly you can go ahead and pick up on the cheap, or and it may be the person who shines here, or are they both going to possibly struggle against these next 4 defenses?
I think Dion Lewis is a great buy low candidate right now. I think if you can, whether you have Derrick Henry or not, especially in PPR, if you can snag Dion Lewis for maybe Albert Wilson, who didn't have a terrible game the other day.
Right.
I'm not saying give up anything crazy, but yeah, if you can get, for those who don't know what buy low means, if you can give up somebody that was drafted pretty far below Dion Lewis, who you don't necessarily value as much, but since Dion Lewis didn't have a very good game last week, if you can snag him, I definitely say go after it.
Yeah. He will be a guy that was on my list and someone to look out for as well, especially if he's going to match Derrick Henry in yardage and in fantasy points. Someone you may be able to get on cheap. Good deal. All right, so who do you got next, man?
My last guy for me is another running back that was taken in the first 2 rounds, maybe early third, but that's Kenyon Drake. For me, first game, 14 rushes, 48 yards. This last game, he had 11 rushes, 53 yards. He did manage to get a touchdown, which once again, like I was talking about David Johnson, kind of saved his fantasy week. But I'm blaming Frank Gore. This guy just doesn't stop. He just doesn't stop. He had 9 carries both games. For the first game, he had 61 yards. He's being used in the pass game. And for him to have 9 carries both games and Kenyon Drake 14 carries is his most. They're basically splitting down the middle, and that's not what I was expecting taking Kenyon Drake when I took him. I knew Frank Gore was there. I knew he was going to be a threat. I knew he was going to get the ball, but, I wasn't expecting it to be split not this much. I think Frank Gore's cutting in way more than a Kenyon Drake owner would like, and,
Definitely.
he's been underwhelming.
Well, I have Kenyon Drake in a couple of leagues, and because I actually believed in him going into this year. He had a phenomenal end of his last year, ending the season, and quite, if again, extrapolated the year, he would have been the number one running back, I do believe, if things continue the way they were going. But he's having first game wasn't that great. I think he ended up with about 10 fantasy points. But this last week, because of the touchdown, he did have about 17 fantasy points, PPR. I think where Kenyon Drake kind of saves himself is in the passing game. He went, I believe, 4 for 4 for about 20 yards this last game. But in PPR, obviously that's 6 or 7 points right there. So that kind of saves his day, and he still is averaging over 4 yards a carry. So it's not like he's not getting it done, but like you're saying, they just are just giving Gore the ball some. They I guess they see something they like, and he's doing what he always done, being steady and consistent. So maybe as the year goes on, with Gore being a little bit older, possibly he winds down a little bit and Drake continues to get more and more touches. I would say Drake is someone I would keep on my radar. As long as he's continuing to have a good average on the ground, and doesn't put the ball on the ground and have any fumbles and can catch the ball in the backfield, I think he provides you with a solid floor. I don't think he's going to get anything less than 10 fantasy points on a week, and if he throws a touchdown in there for you, those are solid all RB2 numbers. What do you think?
Yeah. I mean, I actually when I was preparing for this segment, I wrote Kenyon Drake down, and I was real good about it. And then I went and looked at the stats, kind of basically, what you just gave me, and I kind of thought about it. I was like,
yeah,
is he really on my list just yet? And for me, he's more of an honorable mention.
Right.
I kind of just wanted to talk about him. Real quick though, question for you: are you starting Kenyon Drake or Tevin Coleman?
As long as Freeman is hurt or ailing or dealing with some kind of an injury, I'm certainly starting Coleman. He had an insane game. Obviously for the sake of time, he didn't get a chance to go over that Atlanta game. But
right.
And now I think that was just one of those things. I don't think personally Coleman's that great. He's not an Alvin Kamara type of great efficiency back. I mean, we've seen Coleman for several years now. He's a great, he's a really good, solid two-way back. He can run the ball a little bit, but he's a lot better catching the ball at the backfield. Maybe a poor man's Kamara, so to speak. But I would definitely start Coleman if Freeman is going to be out, and Coleman's going to be. Coleman's going to be a hot commodity this year coming out in free agency. Looks like they're going to have to make the choice between Freeman. They may have Freeman on the contract for some time here, so I don't know. But it looks like they're going to have to let Coleman go, so we'll see where he goes. But certainly, as long as Freeman is hurt, I'm starting Coleman. If Freeman is back and they're splitting carries again, I still like Drake as being the lead back. I mean, it looks like he is the lead back. It's just that they're going to spell him a little bit more than we would like with Gore.
Right.
Yeah. Good deal. Well, let's go ahead and move on. Unless you have anybody else for the blame game here, we can go ahead and move on to the Week 3 games.
Yeah, go ahead. That was it.
All right, good deal. So let's go ahead and talk about the Week 3 games and some performers. The first one I want to talk about, I think we mentioned a little bit earlier, is the Niners and the Chiefs. Niners having a little bit improved defense this year. We have Richard Sherman, and he's looking pretty good. Looks like he's completely rebounded from that Achilles injury. But Mahomes looks unstoppable. Do you think he continues the streak here?
I think Mahomes gives us another big game. I really do. I think the Niners defense is definitely improved, but I think Mahomes is not yet to the point where he's settling down. I don't know if the Niners are going to have everything, because I mean, like we said, they got it. The Chiefs just have so many weapons.
Right.
Just so many weapons, and the big thing that I would say is, Mahomes is finally this is his first game at home. He's finally get to play at home, so yeah. I think this is going to be a great game for him.
Yeah, those fans are going to be rabid when they see him. I know he's far exceeded everybody's expectations, and the fans have to be so happy there and excited for that team. It's big play after big play. And yeah, obviously as a Niners fan, I sat there and watched just about every play of the game, and they got beat a lot. Matt Stafford missed about 5 touchdowns, or at least 5 very, very long plays where the Niners were beat. They had the receivers had a step on their defensive backs, and Matt Stafford just overshot him or undershot him. So Mahomes, being seemingly as accurate as he is with his deep throws, he could be in for a big game. But I do expect Shanahan and his coaching staff to tighten that up a little bit. I don't think we'll see some of those breakdowns, but Kansas City just seems to have so many weapons, and they haven't even unleashed the rushing game just yet. But speaking of the rushing game on the other side of the ball, Breida had an insane game as well. Tevin Coleman kind of the game last game where he broke a long 66-yard rushing attempt there for a touchdown, so he had a great game. And the Chiefs aren't that great on defense themselves. So do you think Breida and the Niners can keep up with them?
Get Breida. Go get him. If he's available, go get him. Like you said, yeah, the Chiefs defense isn't that good. We might be in for another shootout. Another person I would love, or I think is going to have a big game is George Kittle. Do not, pay attention to Kittle. Like I can't tell you enough. This Chiefs defense is just not there, especially with Eric Berry being out. Don't know how much longer he's out, but with him being out, is the captain of that defense. Yeah, I like Breida. I like Kittle. Yeah, we could have another shootout on our hands, and that's going to be a week for owners on both sides of this game.
Right. Now, who are you outside of Kittle starting as, maybe even your flex or whatever, but who are you starting for the 49ers pass catchers? As
a 49ers fan, do you have much information on Marquise Goodwin yet this week in his health?
Obviously, no. It sounded like a bruise. Obviously, a pretty bad one. So he was day-to-day last week, and they decided to keep him out of the game. They moved the ball, but a lot of that came on the ground. It looks like to me, and perhaps expectations for Jimmy GQ were a little bit high, but it looks like he's taken just a tiny bit of a step back, and that probably comes from teams actually having some film on him now and being able to study some of the things that he does, but he doesn't quite look as sharp as he was last year. And maybe, again, it was just the magic of him coming in right at the end of the season, and finally the offense moved the ball a little bit. He did still have 8 interceptions last year to 13 touchdowns, but it just doesn't quite seem like he's as sharp, like he's still learning and maturing into the offense. So I do expect him to continue to be pretty decent, pretty good. He had a decent fantasy day, 20 fantasy points, but some of the mistakes, he got bailed out by I think a holding call where he passed the ball out to the flat and the guy intercepted it, almost took it for a 6. But there was a holding call in the defensive backfield that really saved him and kept the Niners in the lead. So hopefully, he and Shanahan will get together and tighten up some of those kinds of mistakes. And when Marquise Goodwin comes back, perhaps he will be the relevant pass catcher. But right now, if you drafted Pierre Garçon, you have to be a little disappointed because he hasn't quite come through. I don't know if Trent Taylor's caught more than 1 or 2 balls. He was supposed to be something good out of the slot. We haven't seen too much of him. Probably the 2 guys you're on your radar right now are Pettis and Goodwin.
Yeah, that's why I was going to get back that to answer your question. Yeah, if I'm starting somebody in my flex, I'm going after Dante Pettis. For those who didn't hear our earlier episodes, me and Ollie spoke about Richie James.
Yeah.
If Marquise Goodwin is missing some time, you might want to stash Richie. You might want to stash him. But as for right now, yeah, Dante Pettis is probably going in my flex.
Absolutely. Good deal. We'll move on to the next game here. I want to talk about the Saints and the Falcons. The Saints haven't quite been the high-powered of offense we've been hoping for, especially after looking at last week. But this should be a shootout. Who do you have in this game?
If we can get the Matt Ryan from this past week, like if we can forget week 1 Matt Ryan and just get this week 2 Matt Ryan and on.
And forget the 2017 Matt Ryan and continue.
Yeah. And if we can find a way to somehow get the Falcons offensive coordinator and Matt Ryan to look at Julio in the red zone, I mean, this could be, I don't know why, I don't know. But I like the Saints. The Falcons defense is just, it's just hurting.
Right. Yeah.
Continuing to
hurt. A lot of
hurt.
injuries.
So, yeah, Michael Thomas is going to have another big week. I don't see him not having another great week. Kamara's going to have another good week. But on the other side, like you said, it's going to be a shootout. So I think Julio's going to have a big week. I think, Ridley kind of showed himself a little bit this last game.
Yeah,
so
you got to be excited about that because the first week I don't think really had any catches, but he's shown that he might be a big part of the offense moving forward here, and probably the person that is going to hurt the most from this is Sanu, because I have him in one of my squads and he's done squats through the first 2 games.
Right. Yeah, absolutely, and with Ridley coming into his own, and when I was just talking about them not looking at Julio in the red zone, Matt Ryan looked towards Ridley.
Yeah,
I think that's where Ridley got his touchdown. So yeah, that could be, for Sanu owners, yeah, that Ridley coming out. This could be his coming out game.
Are you? Well, yeah, coming out like off my fantasy squad coming out. Very soon here, so we'll see. But he may be hitting the waiver wire if he has another clunker of a game. Are you thinking though, with Calvin coming out, or would you over under more touchdowns this year for Julio Jones or Calvin Ridley? He's already beaten Julio.
More touchdown. I gotta go with Julio.
Okay.
Just for right now. Let me see a little bit more of what they're gonna do with Calvin. We already know what they're gonna do with Julio. He's supplanted into the offense.
Right.
And to be honest, as a Julio fan, seeing Calvin Ridley do well makes me excited because now they've got to focus on Ridley. So maybe that opens it up for Julio.
Take a little pressure off of him in the red zone, and perhaps he can have that positive regression that everyone was talking about here, where he comes back a little bit more towards the mean. I mean, you would think that he has to at least get 4 or 5 touchdowns this year. So we shall see. Hopefully the receptions keep up for Julio, and he's able to keep things going. So we'll like that. Yeah, I think Kamara's going to have a big game. Obviously, Mike Thomas. I think this will be a bounce-back game for Breeze, so he should have a good game this game here. And
absolutely.
Possibly even still your running backs for the Falcons. So I'm starting everyone pretty much there. I'm starting everyone that's supposed to be starting in those games. Even Ted Ginn, I may flex him in this game because I believe this should be a shootout. So keep your eyes on all those guys. All right, good deal. Last game we'll talk about for week 3 is another one that's going to prove to be big likely. You got your Chargers and you got your Rams. Who do you got in this game?
Ooh, that's going to be a good one, but I still like Melvin. I still like Melvin Gordon a lot.
Love Melvin.
Yeah, he's everywhere right now. He's running the ball. He's catching crazy targets. Even if we discount the Bills game, if you want to call it a football game, even if we forget that and go to week 1, I mean, Melvin looks amazing. I like that. I like Keenan Allen. On the other side of the ball, let me once again say how wrong I was about Brandon Cooks. I mean,
Yeah.
they're using that guy. That guy is showing up, and I like Brandon Cooks. I like Cooper Kupp a lot. Of course, I think goes without being said that Todd Gurley is gonna do his thing. And a sneaky pick is Mike Williams. He's finally, he caught a touchdown last game. I think Phillip Rivers, I think he's always liked Mike Williams, and I think they're going to try to use him a little bit more. I know coming in, or me especially, I was thinking, okay, Mike Williams is just going to be this red zone threat.
Right.
But I think Mike Williams, Travis Benjamin's dropping all these passes. Tyrone Williams is dropping all these passes.
Right.
I think Mike Williams can be a sneaky play.
Yeah, it's going to become a trust thing for Phillip Rivers, who's actually looked really good. I haven't looked at the stats, but I'm pretty sure he's been a top 10 quarterback through the first couple of weeks here. But it's going to be a trust thing. If you can't trust Tyrell Williams anymore, those balls are going to start going to Mike Williams. And I think that he will be not someone I'm exactly throwing in my lineup right now, but definitely someone I want on my bench to watch. And another guy that just continues to shock me. I don't know if it's because he's so little and the defenders can't see him, but you're Melvin Gordon, who you got to start, who I love, who they feed the ball to, who's having an amazing fantasy season so far, averages about 3.5 yards per carry. Austin Eckler, no matter what, seems to average about 10 yards a carry. They give him the ball. He had like 7 rushes for 80 yards. And he can catch out of the backfield. I don't know. I as much as I love Gordon, and don't get me wrong, I love Gordon. I had him everywhere I possibly can get him. As we spoke about on the last podcast, I traded you basically my entire team to get Melvin Gordon and my team next year for Gordon because I love him that much. And I think they work great together. So I don't think one or the other, it's a one or the other kind of thing. I don't think like, oh, hey, the Chargers are going to move on from Gordon because they have Eckler. Right. But he runs between the tackles as well. I mean, you got to have this guy on your bench. You can flex him. I think he's a flexible player. He's good for 70, 80 yards per game and a few catches. I'm really impressed with him. And I think in this game with the Rams, their defense, you're going to have to try to get to the outside as much as possible. I see the running backs catching a lot of passes out of the backfield. So that's someone I really want to look at. I've also been very impressed on the other side of the ball for the Rams. Their pass catchers, obviously, like you mentioned, Gurley's going to do whatever he has to do. Not even a question. You're throwing him out there. He did have an injury. Him and Gordon actually went out, I believe, with upper body injury, so hopefully nothing too serious there, but not before each one of them kind of went off on their last games. But this game here, I've been really impressed, though, with the Rams spreading the ball around. We also spoke about Robert Woods and how much usage he was going to get. I have him on one of my fantasy teams. He had 14 fantasy points this week on 6 catches. So everybody seems to be fantasy relevant. I mean, no one's completely going, insane. But Brandon Cooks looks like he's going to lead that receiving core there. So you can start him safely as at least a high-end number 2. But even Cooper Kupp, as you mentioned earlier, and Robert Woods are guys you can throw in your flex.
Definitely. And don't be afraid if you are one of those people that have Melvin Gordon and Eckler. I mean, personally, man, if you don't want to do it this week since it is the Rams, I understand. But moving forward, I don't think it's at all crazy to have both of them, to have Gordon and Eckler, maybe in your flex and have Gordon as your running back. I think they've shown that they can both thrive together.
Yeah, I have both. I'll put both of those guys in my lineup if I was in a deeper league and I was searching for a flex. Eckler is definitely someone you want to have, and if you're a Melvin Gordon owner, he's also kind of a handcuff as well because it looks like they don't mind running him through the tackles. So, I'm being sold on Eckler every time I see him play. Like him a lot. All right, so we can go ahead and end that. Do you have any more games this upcoming for this upcoming week that you want to talk about, or are we good?
No, I think that covered it. Okay. You got it.
All right, let's go ahead and do a quick waiver wire segment here. Again, all the fantasy shows out there do it, so we're not going to sit here and take too much time. Plus, the game is coming on in 10 minutes, so we both want to be sitting down for that. I want to start working on this video podcast so we can get it out to you guys. But quick waiver wire pickup. I got a couple of names here. We already mentioned Jesse James, 138 yards last week, touchdown. Want to keep him in mind if he has another good game, someone you may want to stash on your bench and watch. At this point, John Brown. If you're not on the John Brown choo-choo train, it's time to jump on. He's looking really, really good there out of Baltimore. He seems like they're a deep threat, Dave.
Yeah, no, John Brown is there. They're targeting John Brown. You can even see actually against Cincinnati on Thursday, he had a touchdown, I believe, that he just dropped himself.
Oh wow!
But yeah, John Brown is being used. Yeah, if you haven't hopped on that, or if you're still waiting to see if it's real, it's real. They like John Brown.
Yeah, he looks pretty good. Who do you have for a waiver wire?
As long as Devontae Freeman is out, take a look at Ito Smith. He played well this last game. You know, Tevin Coleman's going to do his thing, obviously, but Ito Smith is definitely somebody you can target. He had 9 carries for 46 yards. So, you know, I would definitely pay attention to him. Also, you know, we talked about him last week, just in case nobody picked him up yet, Tavon Austin. If you paid attention last night, the Cowboys are starting to put him out there.
Yeah.
He started the game off with a
huge play.
It was maybe a 40, 50-yard touchdown. And the speed is still there. It's not gone. It's not even a step slower.
I don't know if Dallas has got the mindset here to use this guy. I mean, to me, he seems like a Tyreek Hill kind of a guy. You don't have to give him a ton of touches, but you do have to scheme up specific things for him. They just will not give him the ball. Don't get me wrong. I know you have Ezekiel Elliott there, but there's no true number one pass catcher there. Why not scheme up 4 or 5 touches a game for this guy? And he's liable to break one of them every single game.
Yeah, no, definitely, and he showed that last night. So yeah, I agree with you on that. You know, Tavon. You know, I'm not ready to start Tavon on my teams yet, but definitely someone to look at. Yeah, and my last guy, if he's still on the waivers, I don't know what you guys are doing, but Keelan Cole is somebody that needs to be on teams. I actually have some leagues where I was able to go out and get him because he wasn't even going to be on this segment for me until I saw he was in multiple leagues that he was available, and I couldn't believe it. Right. So if anybody else is out there, you know, if Keelan Cole is there, go get him.
No, he was one of my draft picks in most of my drafts. I have him on out of the 4 important leagues that I'm in. Again, I'm in 6, but out of the 4 important leagues I'm in, he was one of my late round draft picks once we hit, you know, Marquise Lee went down. And Keelan Cole looked really good for the end of last year. Had an amazing catch, in my opinion, right up there with Odell Beckham's catch from a couple years ago. But had an amazing catch where the ball just kind of stuck to his hands like glue. I think the officials probably should have checked his hands for glue, but it really looked good, man. And I'm loving him this year. And I played him last week as well. He had 24 fantasy points. So yeah, if he's on your waiver wire and he's not on your radar, you need to put him on your radar certainly. I got 2 more guys. Real quickly, it looks like through the first couple of games, at least, Virgil Green is holding on to his spot in the Chargers offense. Possibly it could be Russ for Antonio Gates and just needs a couple more weeks, or possibly they just see Virgil Green is a little bit younger and has a little bit more stuff. So pay attention to him. He had a decent game, not a great game, but had a decent game. I believe he had 3 receptions and 55 yards. If you're hurting at tight end, because there's been so many injuries to the tight end position, 8 or 9 points may be something you can use. So I would keep my eye on him and maybe just stash him on your bench, see how he does. And one last guy, and we're going to get you guys out of here for the evening. Been going for about an hour now. And you have to promise Dave, in our league, because this is a guy that's in our league, one of our leagues here, you're not going to go after him, but I'm going to mention him. I got to get a promise from you, man. I got to get a promise from you.
I only promise if he wasn't already on my mind. If it was on my mind, I can't give you any promises.
Hey, man. Hey, you may see a fight, folks, on the radio here then, because on the podcast, because I want to mention him now. He's probably not on everybody's radar right now, but I watched the game and I really like Jarius Wright connection with Cam. They had several drop balls in this game. Obviously, we have Greg Olsen out. And Cam Newton is looking for someone underneath to help him out. I watched this lead receiver guy. So his name is escaping me right now. Funches dropped about 3 or 4 balls. He can't throw the ball anymore to CMC. He already gave him like 10 or 11 receptions last game. There has to be someone else here who's going to emerge in the offense, and it looks like there's going to be a real connection. Now, again, I'm not saying go out and spend all your fab on him or use number one waiver wire, but if he has another week here, he may be someone you may want to stash on your bench and see if he emerges. So I really like him as someone to watch on your waiver wire.
Definitely. No, I can promise you that I won't be getting him since I wasn't thinking about him. So,
I'm probably not going after him either this week, but one more week. Like I think he had maybe 6 receptions last game and a touchdown. So another week like that, and I'm going to be putting a large amount of fab on this guy. So
one more week and he's fair game, y'all. The listeners heard this. So one more. If he leaves the ball here another week, he's fair game.
Fair game. I'll go. I'll take that. No problem. Well, hey, listen again, everybody. We want to thank you guys for listening in. Enjoyed the game tonight. Thought of the day, as usual. If you can dodge a wrench, you can dodge a ball. Dave, you got anything else for the people?
Enjoy your football. Have a great week.
Absolutely. Have a good night, everybody. Bye now.